Invasive species. An invasive species is a plant or animal that is not native to a specific location and has a tendency to spread, which is believed to cause damage to the environment, human economy, and human health. One study pointed out widely divergent perception of the criteria for invasive species among researchers and concerns with the subjectivity of the term invasive. While all the species compete to survive, invasive species appear to have specific traits or a specific combination of traits that allow them to outcompete native species. In some cases, the competition is about rates of growth and reproduction. In other cases, species interact with each other more directly. Researchers disagree about the usefulness of traits as invasiveness markers. One study found that of a list of invasive and non-invasive species, 80% of the invasive species could be identified from the traits alone. Another study found invasive species tend only to have a small subset of the presumed traits, and that many similar traits were found in non-invasive species, requiring other explanation. Common invasive species traits include fast growth, rapid reproduction, and a tolerance of a wide range of environmental conditions.
Invasive species are one of the leading threats to native wildlife. About 42% of the 300 of endangered species are in risk to disappear because of these invasive species. Invasive species can change the food web in an ecosystem by destroying or replacing native food resources. The invasive species may provide little to no food value for wildlife. So this causes that primary or secondary animals don't get food, so they won't eat, or would get food from another part. So this would break the food chain, transforming it into a lost food chain. Human health and economies are also at risk from invasive species. The impacts of invasive species on our natural ecosystem and economy cost billions of dollars each year. Many of our commercial and agricultural activities depend on healthy native ecosystems. One of the most risky invasive species in lakes is the Asian carp, a catch-all title for species of silver, bighead, and black carp from Asia that are fast-growing fish that outcompete native fish for food and habitat. This is very risky and dangerous. Just the last year, the population of fishes in lakes decreased because of this fish. This fish cause a really low population of the other species in the lake, reducing all normal species in the lake and increasing their own population. This can be very dangerous in food chains because they cause the death and disappearance of other ones. So there will be a new lake, but with the same species. Food chains won't exist, and the most probably thing that would happen is that the lake will be only with abiotic factors.
One good example of an invasion species can be the killer bee. This is a very poisonous bee. This was originally a hybrid between the African and the European bee. This killer bee was made with the purpose to create a bee that can produce more honey than the European bee or the African one. But some decades ago, there was an accident while the transportation of these bees. On this accident, they escaped. With the pass of the years, the bees were reproducing and increased their quantity. Now, the killer bees can be found on the 70% of the American continent, on the gardens, inside the houses, on the streets, and in more places that originally they had not been.
The best way to fight invasive species is to prevent them from occurring in the first place. You can help stop the introduction and spread of invasive species by following these easy steps that I will give you. Number 1. Verify that the plants you are buying for your yard or garden are not invasive. Replace invasive plants in your garden with non-invasive alternatives. Ask your local nursery staff for help in identifying invasive plants. Number 2. When boating, clean your boat throughout before transporting to a different body of water. Number 3. Clean your boots before you hike in a new area to get rid of hitchhiking weed seeds and pathogens. Number 4. Don't pack a pest when traveling. Fruits and vegetables, plants, insects, and animals can carry pests or become invasive themselves. Don't move firewood. Number 5. Don't release aquarium fish and plants, leave bait or other exotic animals into the wild. If you plan to own an exotic pet, do your research and plan ahead to make sure you can commit to looking after it. And last but not least, number 6. Volunteer at your local park, refuge, or other wildlife area to help remove invasive species. Help educate others about the trip.
A food web or food cycle is the natural interconnection of food chains, and generally a graphical representation, usually an image, of what eats what in an ecological community. Another name for food web is a consumer resource system. Ecologists can broadly lump all life forms into one of two categories called trophic levels. 1. The autotrophs, and 2. The heterotrophs. To maintain their bodies, grow, develop, and to reproduce, autotrophs reduce organic matter from inorganic substances, including both minerals and gases such as carbon dioxide. These chemical reactions require energy, which mainly comes from the sun and largely by photosynthesis, although a very small amount comes from either thermal vents and hot springs. A gradient exists between trophic levels running from a complete autotroph that obtain their sole source of carbon from the atmosphere, to mixotrophs such as carnivorous plants that are autotrophic organisms that partially obtain organic matter from sources other than the atmosphere, and complete heterotrophs that must feed the obtained organic matter. The linkages in a food web illustrate the feeding pathways, such as where heterotrophs obtain organic matter by feeding on autotrophs and other heterotrophs. The food web is a simplified illustration of the various methods of feeding that links an ecosystems into a unified system of exchange. There are different kinds of feeding relations that can be roughly divided into herbivory, carnivory, scavenging, and parasitism. Some of the organic matter eaten by heterotrophs, such as sugars, provides energy. Autotrophs and heterotrophs come in all sizes, from microscopic to many tons, from cyanobacteria to giant redwoods, and from viruses and delvobrio and blue whales.